This is an excerpt from the Wait Are These Guys Friends podcast. But sticking with Marvel, let's pivot over to a couple of trailers. The first one of which is they put out Ironheart, which I gut reaction, and it's tough to talk about this because it is already like one of the most downvoted trailers on YouTube, but that's because of a big old racism and a little sexism. I would like to say I don't enjoy the trailer based on the trailer, but as a middle-aged white man, I feel uncomfortable talking about it to some degree. But I'm going to. I just thought it looked boring. But thoughts?
I'm intrigued by the probably bad guy. The guy who seems to introduce her to this world of the suit and all those mechanics. But clearly he is not who he says he is or whatever at the beginning. So that part intrigued me because I'm just like, oh, this is a different villain I don't know about because I didn't read the comics. So that part intrigued me, but it might be on thin ice for a little bit. Like I was like, they should get to it in the first couple episodes. Like not let's not get too much exposition and drag this along. Like catch my attention to begin with, and then I'll give you some leeway. I think that's how I feel.
Here's what concerns me about this show. You know how they've been talking about how we're dropping down our content, we're focusing on this, only the most important things, blah, 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 blah. This was shot 3 years ago.
Ooh.
This was shot in 2022, and they've held it. Obviously, they also had to... When did Wakanda Forever come out? Which is that introduced the character. That was 2022 as well.
Yeah.
So in theory, dialing it back to Black Widow, how Black Widow technically, even though it was filmed years later, in the timeline and logically should have come out right after Civil War. This, in theory, I think was supposed to be or could have been a relatively quick follow-up to the character following Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Okay.
However, and it was shot in 2022, just like Wakanda Forever was shot in 2022. But it's just coming out now. They did reshoots to retool and try to rework this show within the last year. So I realize that's judging a book by its cover, but knowing that this was kind of shot at the height of Disney's content glut that watered things down gives me pause, if I'm being entirely honest.
Yeah. When it's something I have no knowledge of, I'm generally willing to give it a little bit of a shot, but yeah, again, I'll tread lightly with it. I think I don't think this trailer helps that cause, right? I'll still give it a shot, but I don't think it's pushing me towards. I was intrigued by New Avengers, right? Just because and it was characters we already knew, so maybe that's a little unfair, but I was still kind of in on an opportunity to see what was going on here. This, I don't know much about it, so I feel like it needs a bigger hook.
I knew enough about the comic book character that when it was first announced, I think in late 2021, I was really excited and intrigued by what it could have been. However, as Marvel has developed and as the production of this show has developed, the biggest hook to me, and to be fair, the biggest hook to me was never Riri Williams. In the comic books, she also debuted post the death of Tony Stark, but the hook to the comic was that her internal AI, her Jarvis, for what it's worth, was an AI representation of Tony Stark. So that's how he was reintroduced. And, through comic book means, that AI representation eventually led to him coming back as a real person, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, even if it had been voiceover only, you don't need to have a full holographic representation of Robert Downey Jr. But because Jarvis never had that, if they had done AI Tony as her mentor and guide while trying to learn and do this suit, this show would have a different level of hype.
Well,
but
and
it doesn't
was
have
Robert Downey Jr. the voice in What If? Did they do all the original voices in What If?
No, they did. Anyone who was
That's what I mean. They
could
could just do some. Yeah, as long as he doesn't sue them or whatever, you could easily do someone impersonating, right? So
I think in a live action scenario, that is going to be received way differently than the What If.
Oh, so it's not like Jarvis where it's just the voice. It
is, but I'm talking about a live action show, a production. I think when you're not just doing a cartoon, Cartoon
Yeah,
people understand. You recast Tony Stark, I say in quotes, for a show that is ostensibly live connected to the MCU, people are not going to be happy. Gut reaction.
I guess if it's just the voice, it doesn't bother me as much, but maybe I'm in the minority. Fair enough.
My gut reaction is I feel like you are, but respect to
Hmm.
that.
Okay.
But that comes out at time of recording in just a few weeks, mid-June, I
Okay.
believe. There's already some backlash. I say backlash. Some of the cast and a few other people have said that they're concerned. They basically, I think the thought is that they're dumping this because it's only 6 episodes and they're releasing 3 of them the first week.
They're
The,
also going to be fighting. That's, I believe, I think Stranger Things comes out in June and The Bear. So like that's two
ah,
massive things that's going to be fighting for eyes for.
I mean, at least the show got made and is coming out. They
Of
also
course, yeah,
announced
yeah.
Armor Wars with Rhodey, Don Cheadle as Rhodey. I think that just got shelved forever, which is a shame
Mm,
because I think I was more excited for that because there were rumors Sam Rockwell was coming back to be
yeah.
Justin Hammer, and I was like, that's a bummer. It, the thing is, and this is me being a nerdy, salty old man, probably. I still love everyone from Phase 1. If
Yeah.
I can get a show dedicated to a character from Phase 1 who I've been following since 2008, I would like that, please. So
Even
if
if
you
it's a
were going to.
grizzled version of them mentoring new people. What a great way to bring new people in, right?
Exactly, exactly. That's why the Hawkeye show works so well. You
Yeah.
got Kate and Clint working really well together, and I'm excited to see more Kate. And I've ranted about how now it's been years since we've seen Kate. We should be seeing Kate in the MCU, interacting with people. She was a great character. I loved working with that character in the show, and now it's like she's vanished as well. But
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
Is she next Avengers is in the comic
In
book lore
theory,
or
yeah. The well,
okay,
not
yeah. Like
the teen of
Sa
the
yeah,
teen
the
Avengers, whatever the
Falcons,
fuck were they
whatever.
called?
Yeah, yeah, oh right, yeah.
What the hell was they? I keep wanting to say Young Justice, which is a great name, but
Uh,
that was the
what?
mid '90s version of the Teen Titans, which was a great book, and also a high quality DC cartoon. The
Yeah.
first 4 seasons are on Max / HBO Max / give it 6 months, they'll have another name. Highly recommended. But it doesn't matter. Regardless, that's pretty much my thoughts on Ironheart. Let's see if you have any final thoughts. We can move on.
You can cut this out if you want, but which is probably an edit point already. You mentioning just Rhodey and War Machine just cracks me up because for a probably 2 to 3 year period of my son's enjoyment of anything Marvel, War Machine was his favorite character, and I always
Hmm.
remembered that my son is a giant, like most kids, way into Legos and like loves building all the Lego sets and stuff like that, and. I I was always secretly thankful that he loved War Machine because they were a lot cheaper than the sets for the
Fair enough.
other.
Man, I had never thought about it that way, but you're right. It's a good looking design.
I
Did he love it because he always had that big rocket gun that came out of his shoulder? That was always
think
pretty
so.
kick ass.
He went as
The,
him for Halloween one year. It was pretty cool. We had to find part of it and then sort of recustomize it. It was cool.
I just had a really I just had this image that you soul manned your kid to see Thomas Howell movie from 1986, but we're
Wow.
not going to worry about that.
And our heartwarming story is lovely when Mike chimes in. So it's
I mean, I love it, and it's great that you wanted to be War Machine. I just ruined it. So that's nice. Um, you know,
little bit.
I I briefly brought up DC, a little of
Yeah.
their output. The full official, because there had been a teaser about 6 months ago, they finally put out the full official trailer for Superman, which comes out in
Hmm.
July.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm ready for it. I think I keep seeing them now, and I'm getting to the point of okay, let's get started. I don't want to get too much that I've seen, so it feels oversaturated. Which I mean,
Agreed.
not that they're giving anything away. I'm just like, let's get to it. I feel like I'm seeing the same thing kind of over and over again, and I don't want it to turn me off before I even start to see it. But I'm excited to go check it out. I love that they're exploring the fact of the other side of when Superman saves things, or I didn't want to be saved, or that I love to just to look into that part of it because that is a reality of reality that is what he's trying to deal with of the fact that he's saving everything. What's the line? Is it Lex Luthor's line? He's not a man, he's an it. Like that's an interesting. dynamic there.
I
Just
am
like
so cautiously optimistic on this one because a lot of this feels like it's drawing from, listen, more modern Superman comics, because even Superman Returns and the Snyderverse, for whatever it's worth, which was its own fucking thing, which I never enjoyed because he was so angry all the time.
yeah,
But we haven't had, there's so many great comics from the last 25 years of Superman that are more than what, listen, the very good Richard Donner adaptation was great for what Superman was in the 70s. Superman hasn't been that character since the 80s.
right.
1986 made him way more modern when they rebooted him with the John Byrne Man of Steel. And they've only updated him more and more as the years gone by. I want that modern Superman. I'm cautiously optimistic. The fact that Lois already knows the secret identity is a huge step up, because in the comics, they've been married for years. And one of the best parts of modern Superman comics is her ability to cover for him when he needs to
Mm,
run off and be Superman. It's a great dynamic that we've never really seen on screen. I'm very excited for that. The thing about Lex Luthor, which is what I was starting to say, and I got pivoted because it's all kind of from the book. There's an amazing miniseries called All Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly. I adore it. I love it. It's amazing. But I feel like there are probably going to be lines ripped right from that, because even though modern Luthor has always been a human first type thing, which is why he hates Superman, that is dialed up to 11 in All Star Superman. And I'm really
yeah.
getting those vibes. And there's scenes from him in the fortress in that book. And I'm really just seeing a lot of it. And I'm very excited. Also, we didn't even address the fucking Justice League is in this movie, but it's
Yeah.
like the mid 90s B tier Justice League, which I'm great with because they still kicked ass, but they were never the big draws. And it's amazing to me that you have finally have Nathan Fillion as a Green Lantern, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, he was online fan casting Dream Hal Jordan. Now that he's gotten older, he's Guy Gardner, and I'm like, that's so weird that he went from Green Lantern to Green Lantern casting. It's
Yeah.
very, very odd.
He's aging very well. So let me ask you this, because I feel like my difficulty at times, and I think it's just a somewhat failure on the DC movie universe of
Mm-hmm.
making me care about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
If this follows what you think it'll follow, where are we going with Superman? Is this setting up to have a couple more to do some other stuff? Like, because I feel
Oh
like it's
yeah.
the one and dones I don't love when it
So
comes to that
this
type of thing.
is, in theory, and this is what I think they're walking a fine line of needing to hammer this home so people
Hmm.
know, and also not be obnoxious about it.
Yep.
This is the new DCU. This is the start. This
Okay.
is the first one that this is James Gunn is now in charge of the DC universe. This is the starting point. Superman, he has said, is you start with Superman and you go from there. So the world will be built around the fact that Superman is the world's hero, and anything else is coming from that.
Gotcha.
So, by the way, I've mentioned, as we talked about Righteous Gemstones, Skylar Gazando. I'm a huge fan of what he does. He's playing Jimmy Olsen in this movie, which I don't
Oh,
remember
cool.
seeing him in the trailer, but I'm excited for that.
That's good casting. Yeah.
It is.
He
It
looks the
should be.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how old he is now, boyish, but he's young
Yeah.
looking, which should be good.